How's the mic? Very good. Hot mic, hot mic. Good afternoon, everyone. How are we feeling after lunch? Good. You better wake up. It's a tough time slot, right? 2:30 to 3:30, last day of the con. But honestly, I've been really fortunate to be able to attend everyone else's talks and, impart that wisdom into our own talk. So welcome to CVE Records, the cybersecurity glow up you didn't know you needed. My name is Julia Turkevich.
And I'm Rina Rakipi.
And we are representatives from the U.S. government's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So meet your glow up guides. That's us. My title is I am CISA's lead CVE numbering authority recruiter.
And then my title is Strategic Partnerships and Vulnerability Program Development. And we're going to dive into what our roles mean and just give you guys a little bit of background on who we are and why we're here.
So as CISA's lead CVE numbering authority recruiter, I complete outreach to companies, researchers, organizations to join the CVE program as a partner. The ecosystem depends on partners to contribute to the ecosystem meaningfully so we can all take actionable defense. So in my tenure at CISA, which is about 2.5 years, I've been proud to onboard over 40 organizations with my team. Thank you. CISA's root scope is industrial control systems, medical devices, and critical infrastructure. I like to say we look for partners that if vulnerabilities are found in those systems, they could have catastrophic impacts on American lives and public safety. So here is just an example of me at DEF CON with some of our new CVE partners. This is B. Braun, a medical device partner. And if you maybe haven't met me before, I don't go to conferences a lot. You may have seen me on Teams, or if you like the sound of my voice, you can go to the CVE Program's podcast, available on YouTube, and you can hear me talk about the Council of Roots, which I think, are there any other roots in the room right now? I spy Tomo.
Tomoito, JP Cert in the back.
Good. Red Hat is another root. Anyone from Red Hat? Oh, they're going to miss out.
I know we have MITRE right here. I've got
MITRE,
Chris
of course,
Kaufman in the
another
front.
route. We know Christian had to travel back early from Incibe, Spanish cert. And Google, anyone from Google here?
Andrew Pollack, thank you. Thank you anyways.
Perfect. Very good. And finally, the last route is Talus Group. And, I share that with you because the roots have a great working relationship with one another. We all recruit organizations to partner in the CVE program within our specific scopes. The other podcast I'll point out is the Myths versus Facts. That's where I talk about CNA recruitment and answer questions you may not be familiar with. So what types of organizations can become CNAs? Like bug bounty programs. They are totally eligible to be a CNA. Third-party coordinators, researchers, consortiums. You can look at the full CVE list of partners online at cve.org, and that gives you an idea of just the diversity we have within the program.
All right, awesome. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background. I know I've met a good bunch of you this week, and I'm very grateful for that. So I'm going to, if you see some of these images up here, so in my prior role at CISA, I've been at CISA for about a couple of years now. I was in our production shop. So how many of you read any of our joint advisories from CISA? Bunch of hands up. Amazing. So here's an example of one that I helped write. So we'd hear about a CVE, a vulnerability, and it be exploited in the wild by, a nation state actor or the like. And we developed these joint advisories to communicate what was going on. And so I have a very strong communication background and would work with a bunch of our international and interagency partners to develop this guidance. Additionally, if you've seen our SBD alerts, anyone read the SBD alerts at all? Bob has. We've got somebody else in the back. So Bob and I actually created this series of publications called the Secure by Design Alerts. And essentially they were focusing on eliminating classes of vulnerabilities. Who likes eliminating classes of vulnerabilities? Sweet, sweet, great room, great room. So we've released around 8 of them. And through my work developing those with Bob and other like folk, Alec from MITRE and other organizations that were involved and really cared about eliminating classes of vulnerability, they kind of poached me over to the vulnerability management side of the house. And, I became in love with that topic with eliminating classes of vulnerability, CWE, and I began doing more speaking engagements on these topics. And that's why I'm here today and why I care. I care about eliminating these types of things. I care about communicating to defenders what's going on in a way that allows them to take informed action. And so that's a little bit about us. So Julia's going to dive into more of CISA and the CVE program and how those, whoops, there you go.
Spoiler alert. So at CISA, we are America's cyber defense agency. We are also the national coordinator for critical infrastructure resilience, and we reduce risk to our critical infrastructure. It's kind of a big undertaking, if I do say so myself. Thankfully, we have the CVE program whose mission quite aligns with that. So the mission of the CVE program is to identify, define, and catalog publicly disclosed vulnerabilities. As we know, CVE is the language through which we communicate vulnerability information across time zones, across industries, across countries. CVE provides a framework to share critical and actionable vulnerability information with cyber defenders. I personally care about CVE because you can't have vendor tools, you can't have the KEV, you can't have a lot of important products without CVEs. And you can't have CVEs without CNAs. So that's what I do. Our mission, as I said, is to protect the nation's critical infrastructure, and CVE plays a huge role in that.
All right, you guys got a little preview of this a minute ago with my hot fingers. But CVE program, as Julia was mentioning, is really the backbone of effective vulnerability management. It's a centralized source of truth, and it's a standardized reference point for all vulnerability information, right? So it provides that standardized name, and then it is enriched with a bunch of information that defenders can use. It fuels that vulnerability management. It provides, again, as I mentioned, that actionable information for defenders in that centralized repository. It enables risk reduction, as Julia mentioned. That's our main mission at CISA. We're reducing the nation's risk, specifically within the FSEB and critical infrastructure. And it also enables global collaboration. It's a system that can be, again, used worldwide amongst different types of languages. I know we've got some of our international CERT friends in the back. Again, a tool to be used globally to reduce risk.
Working together, we're really strengthening the backbone of vulnerability management. CISA is the sole sponsor of the CVE program, and we recognize why it's so important to all of these other activities that cyber defenders need to take action, as Rina said. Together, CVE is useful, accessible, and a single source of truth for vulnerability information for vendors, for researchers, to government agencies. And by supporting CVE, we're really building the backbone of effective vulnerability management. You're quite familiar with this CVE record requirement. If you're not, study up. So the 3 required parts of a CVE record are the CVE ID, that's the number in front, a description, and a reference link. Now, a really quality record will include a comprehensive list of affected products and their affected versions in the description. It won't be just NA or anything else. We really rely on descriptions to give us more information about the vulnerability. My analysts tell me that in particular patch, if a patch is available, please include that in the description. And if there's a workaround guidance, that is also arguably their most desired part of the description. These required fields give the basis for the record, giving cyber defenders the initial info to start triaging vulnerabilities in their own systems. For references, just one link is required, but what's really great is when you can compile links from the researcher, the authoring CNA, and maybe some GitHub about the proof of concept for the vulnerability. That all makes a really quality CVE record. But then I also want to talk about enriched records. So when we glow up CVEs, we add a little CWE and a CVSS. And right here, I have some stats. So, in the past year, 284 CNAs produced 23,000 CVE records. Close to 12,000 of those records had both CWE and CVSS. So that's really, really great. 71% of the CVEs had just CWE and 53% had CVSS. And so, like mentioned this morning's talk with Sandy and Bob, when we talk about completeness, right now we're focusing on CWE and CVSS. They are a vital part to providing context of a vulnerability. CWE helps us understand the underlying weakness of a vulnerability, and CVSS is the standardized scoring system for assessing potential technical impact and severity. So we believe that adding CWE and CVSS significantly enhances the values of CVE entries and helps defenders prioritize and act effectively. As you can see, not all CVEs include these, and we really want to minimize that gap. And that brings us to the reason we are here today. CVE records need a glow up.
Does anyone in the audience know what a glow up is?
All right.
There's a lot who don't know. Thank God we're here to describe it.
Thank God we're here. Glow up is not just a makeover. It is it's not only a physical transformation, it's really building on the foundation of something and improving it to be more effective. So like any great transformation, we're improving on the essentials, making it stronger, reliable, and more equipped for the challenges ahead. And glow up is not just for beauty blogs. We think glow ups are definitely applicable to CVEs. So right here, we have the iconic 2001 film, The Princess Diaries. Okay, people are laughing. That means they've seen it. This is a common picture when you're talking about a glow up, right? It's a physical one. Mia is a clumsy high schooler, very afraid of public speaking, kind of relatable. And she finds out that she is the heir to the throne of the Princess of Genovia. And so during her princess training, she learns how to be graceful and empowered to hopefully govern Genovia eventually. So in addition to the physical makeover, she had a transformation. And then we also have Captain America. Hopefully that lands with this crowd. So Steve Rogers' origin story. Not quite the physical fitness or size that they were looking for in the U.S. military, but he was very courageous with a big heart. And so he volunteered to be injected with the super soldier serum, which gave him power, strength, and durability. So when I think of glow up, this is what I originally thought of, but we'll go on and share how it's more applicable to CVEs and whatnot. Let's see. On the top, we have the old cve.miter.org. This was the first website, and we upgraded. We had a glow up. In 2021, the website updated to just cve.org, and it's more user-friendly. And even in 2023, we were able to bulk download the JSON files for CVEs, which was a significant improvement to how you were ingesting CVE records before. So the CVE program has already gone through a little glow up itself. And then Windows 95. Who used Windows 95 in their first job?
Love it.
Now, my argument here is you couldn't have Windows 11 without Windows 95. So Windows 95, was actually kind of revolutionary with the little taskbar, the start button, things like that, a GUI interface. And the Windows 11 that we likely all use in our day-to-day settings really depended on that glow up, that improvement. We would not be here without Windows 95.
All right, this last analogy is going to get us a bit closer to CVE records, I promise. Anyone a Star Wars fan in here? No more than that?
Yeah, I think there's more.
There's got to be
There's
more.
gotta be more.
All right, all right. I'm raising my hand too. So right here we have Luke Skywalker in A New Hope. So Luke Skywalker, he's just kind of, simple. He doesn't really know that he has the Force. He's growing up on a farm, and then he meets Obi-Wan, and then he meets Yoda, and they teach him about the Force. They teach him about all the midichlorians he has within his body that he could use to harness and again, harness the Force. They teach him the Jedi ways, the lessons that they've garnered over years and years and years. In Yoda's case, like hundreds and hundreds of years, because his species lives like close to 1,000, I'm pretty sure. Anywho, as he learns and as he teaches and as he gets tools, he becomes a powerful and skilled Jedi that's prepared to take on the Galactic Empire. Actually, I think I have one of those tools with me today. Julia, if you will.
Yeah, I think we packed them.
Thank you. So Luke Skywalker now has an understanding of the Force. He has an understanding of his lightsaber, his tool, and he ends up defeating his own father, Darth Vader. It's a little bit like, spoiler, sorry if you haven't seen A New Hope, well, watch it.
I know, TLP Star Wars?
TLP Star Wars.
TLP spoiler? I don't know.
TLP spoiler. So Luke, before he meets Yoda and before he meets Obi-Wan and before he has his nice lightsaber, he's kind of like a basic CVE record, right? Competent, sure. You've got the description there, you've got some references, affected products, sure, but like not really ready to take on the Empire. But through that training, through that enrichment, again, he defeats Darth Vader. So same thing with the CVE record. A CVE record enriched with the context, the CWE, or the force within the vulnerability. And then additionally enriched with the CVSS, which is the potential technical impact or the potential severity of a vulnerability. So akin to Star Wars, it would be like how the Death Star's laser would potentially impact your ship's ability to jump into light speed. It's enriched and it allows a defender to take action on their systems in an actionable way. Again, same thing as Luke Skywalker. Without his tools, without that additional context, without that training, that understanding of the Force, the understanding that Darth Vader is his father, he might not have been up to the task. And so this is what brings us here today.
Excellent handling of the mic, lightsaber, and the clicker, Rina.
Thank you.
You so much. All right. So going back to CVE records, the glow up you didn't think you needed. Right here, we have the basic CVE record, which again includes the required CVE ID, the description, and at least one reference link. When we add CWE, we blow it up. We add a little enrichment. That adds more context to the vulnerability, giving defenders more knowledge and awareness about the vulnerability that they are trying to remediate. It also impacts the software development lifecycle, right? Addressing reoccurring weaknesses in your products. When we glow it up with the CVSS string, specifically the vector, that is particularly important to help defenders identify where it is in their systems. I've heard that from my analysts directly, that part, the first part right there, the vector string, really makes a difference if you include it versus when you don't. When we have a fully enriched record, defenders take action. It's as simple as that. All right, so here's an example of a CVE that does not need a glow up, in our opinion. We decided to use one that we published ourselves. We're not playing favorites, just, setting an example. This was by the ICS CERT CNA, and you can see that in addition to the required info, it has that CVSS score with that beautiful vector string.
Love it.
It's got its CWE assignment. It's got a description, which tells you specifically about the version, which is very helpful for cyber defenders. It also has over here the vendor name, more versions, product info, whatnot. Can anyone guess who maybe wrote this record? CISA, right? Now, who maybe teaches you how to write good CVE records? Maybe CISA. Maybe if you grew up with a CVE board member as your parent. That's right. Art Manion's son wrote the CVE record. And he did a good job.
You probably made him rewrite it a handful of times.
So right here, what we'll talk about a little bit later in the presentation is about CISA's vulnerability efforts, how we are glowing up our own records. But you see here that CISA only provides the CWE and CVSS when it's not included. So it's not part of this ADP, but we do provide the first 3 decision points of SSVC to help defenders inform their prioritization of vulnerability mitigation.
All right. We told you what a glow up is. We gave you an example of a glowed up CVE record. So why is this even necessary? Why do we need to glow up or enrich CVE records? Well, without that CWE, without the CVSS, specifically the vector string, it's like a map without any landmarks, right? Security teams are really left guessing. They're misaligned, they're wasting resources, and they're potentially leaving vulnerabilities unaddressed. But when a CVE gets that glow up, when it gets that context of, the potential weakness that caused that vulnerability to occur, or the potential severity or the potential technical impacts of that vulnerability, if you look on the right, the road becomes way more clear. You've got a nice, shiny, bright, I love that I have this lightsaber, a nice, shiny, bright sun. And that leads, again, to more informed decision-making that is incoming in the hands of defenders, as opposed to here, where it's all dark and cloudy and kind of really confused right here with those squiggles and we're not really sure where you're going. Okay, I'm going to hand this to Julie, actually. So I told you why this glow up matters. Well, let's talk about those individual components. CWE. Who cares about CWE in this room? A lot of people. CWE is very important. CWE helps provide the root cause of a vulnerability. It is the weakness that caused it. It's maintained by MITRE. They do a tremendous job. I know you guys just heard Steve Christie talk all about CWE and CWE mapping. And it's really essential to understanding, again, why vulnerabilities are even coming up. You can see this tree right here. You've got the root causes at the bottom, and they're causing what's coming up out of the tree. So we've identified, some groups that care about CWE, and I know a good handful of you raised your hands. So I'd love to hear from you guys actually in the crowd. Why do you care about CWE? Who are you and why do you care? Andrew Pollock, who are you and why do you care about CWE?
I'm a highly opinionated Australian. I care about CWEs because it gives you the ability to, as we asked at the start, identify and eliminate entire classes of vulnerability.
And what kind of role do you have in your job?
I am an independent citizen who is highly opinionated on the internet.
Perfect.
In a recent past life, I was the most visible project member of OSV.
Okay. You'll get Mr. Ford in the back, correct? He rose his hand.
And you get a sticker. Thank you for participating. All right, who was next?
Mr. Ford, I believe, in the back.
All right.
So if you are someone who creates or maintains or deploys firewalls and other defensive measures, you care about this because you don't want to write a firewall rule for every single problem that you see. You want to be able to group those problems together. So essentially understanding CWE helps you in terms of arranging your network defenses.
All right, I saw some more hands. Bob, clap for that one.
Thank
So
you
that
for your
one's a
input.
really great one. I saw some hands over here. Any other hands? Why you care about CWE?
We've
Maggie.
got stickers.
Hey there. My name is Maggie Morganti, and I run the PCERT for WorldPay. We're a backend payment processing system. Formerly was at Rockwell Automation. And I care about CWE because I find it really useful to help us better resource teams. So if we can show that we're getting clusters of similar CWEs out of maybe a particular group of engineers, we can use that to advocate for better training around sort of the root cause of that problem instead of having to constantly play whack-a-mole with individual vulnerabilities that might be showing up in that code.
Amazing.
Claps and a sticker. Ooh.
Any final answers or input?
I need my steps.
We've got BSI in the back. And again, why I'm asking why everybody cares is because, a big theme of VulnCon this time around is, CVE completeness. And we need to know, one, why are we needing to add that? And two, who cares? And you guys are the people who care. And so it's really beneficial to hear why you care.
Well, I care because the CWE helps us identify trends and then educate vendors what they could do actually better. So that's why we deeply care about CWE, but we don't use it.
I have a lightsaber.
We'll get you there, Cecilo. All right.
All
Heading
right,
back
so-
up.
Again, thank you for those inputs. I've kind of mapped up here who we think at a high level cares about CWE and why. So we've got security teams. So they need to understand the root cause to respond effectively and prevent those future vulnerabilities. We've got security researchers. I'm sure there's a handful of security researchers in this crowd, and they use CWE to spot trends and identify patterns and weaknesses across systems. And then we've got code producers, so as Vasila was mentioning, and product developers, and they can have root causes inform their SDLC to prevent recurring weaknesses at the onset. Bob, Secure by Design, right there for you. And then senior leadership. It informs their risk management decisions at the organizational level. Okay, go to the next slide. Okay, so we talked about who cares about CWE, and we'd be remiss to not mention that there's definitely some challenges with CWE. I'm sure we can all relate with that, but there's some solutions. So I'm going to walk through some of the challenges, and I'd love to make this an open discussion too, and present some solutions and get your guys' opinions. So obviously, it can be time consuming and complex. There's definitely been shown to be some inconsistency across organizations and CNAs with CWE assignment. There's sometimes a difficulty in pinpointing the root cause, and it can be a manual effort, which time, resources. There's some learning curves and knowledge gaps in how to assign that CWE, and then there's some CNAs or vendors who are even unsure of the value of disclosing the weakness to the public, right? Any other challenges in the audience that I'm missing here? Okay, we did a good job then. Well, we've got some solutions, right? So we presented some challenges. We've got some solutions. If you're facing any of these challenges, we definitely recommend you guys joining the root cause mapping working group. I believe it's run by MITRE, and that'll definitely help improve that root cause identification. An additional piece of guidance as well, if you're having difficulty pinpointing which CWE, I would say start at the parent. I start at that parent, don't leave at the parent, but leverage the mapping notes, which have been recently added, and use those to get as precise as possible. So when you start at that parent, which is usually a little bit easier to pick, you can kind of drill down, use those mapping notes that a bunch of experts created in the CWE catalog, and it'll get you closer to understanding what that weakness actually is. Additionally, leverage some AI-powered tools to streamline and automate the assignment process. I believe we had some friends at AWS talk about a chatbot, Julia?
That's right. CNA Guru. It was a very cool tool that was presented yesterday, and looking forward to reviewing that and seeing how it evolves. And then, of course, the root cause mapping group is also working on an AI solution, something to help us out, right, with this manual process. There are so many CWEs to choose from, even the parent and with all of the ones under it. And I believe Red Hat also presented on maybe some other solutions to help us better assign CWEs. But I think what's most important is we need your input to make those solutions. We can't just admire the problem, like we say at CISA, or whine and complain. Let's be a part of the solution for CWE, because we just had at least 3 people say they care about it, and it's really important.
Thank you, Julia. And then lastly, if you're unsure as a vendor, or if you've seen CNAs not putting CWEs, there is value to disclosing the weakness to your customers and to the vulnerability community at large, right? It's demonstrating accountability and transparency for the security of your customers. And so we believe that those solutions are a start to kind of quelling those challenges presented with CWE assignment. Any thoughts there on the solutions? Anybody have an additional one or hear of one during this week? Yes, sir. Oh, you get a sticker too. We cannot forget that.
So it's not a solution, but more of a question.
Yeah.
So here you're saying the inconsistency across organization and CNAs. I thought there would be some kind of procedure after CNA submitted their vulnerabilities. I thought there's a committee or something reviewing these like CWE assignment, because some of them are not even assigned, right? And so there must be like another layer that's either addressing these inconsistencies or fill up the empty CWE fields. Is there such a gating process?
Yeah, so so CISA, we're going to talk about this later. We do a thing called vulnerable, which is we enrich CVE records, typically those that are complete with SSVC. But we've recognized that there are some gaps in the data, and this is the reason why we're here today and really talking and encouraging completeness of CVE records. So when there are gaps, CISA as an ADP does go in and enrich with CWE and CVSS, but ultimately CNA knows best. They know their code best. They know their products best, and they should be the ones that are really, assigning these things. And what we're doing today is really trying to stress how important that is, and also provide some solutions forward for the CNAs to be able to do that.
Yeah, before we iron out any inconsistency, we have to make sure the CWE is actually on the record first.
Okay, importance of CVSS. Who cares about CVSS here?
Yeah, you do.
A lot of lovely hands. Okay, so CVSS again, it's a scoring system that details a lot of important properties about vulnerabilities. Essentially, it's providing that potential technical impact and the potential severity of a vulnerability. It's very important. We specifically like to focus on the vector string, which provides a lot of, again, detail on those potential technical impacts and the potential severities. See, it's this guy right here questioning, again, what this vulnerability is going to be as it relates to his unique network. So I saw all those hands. I'd love to hear again, similar to CWE, who are you and why do you care about CVSS? Why do you use it? I'm going to go with my friend from Verizon, George, correct? Thank you, George.
So when used correctly, not just a base score, but also a temporal score, taking in exploitability and your environment and your context, it allows you to prioritize what really needs to get fixed. Because if you have a million criticals, then nothing's really a critical and you're not focusing on what you have to. So it allows us to do that when we calculate it correctly.
And what type of role do you have at Verizon?
I run the proactive security team, which includes exposure and vulnerability management.
Okay, awesome. Andrew Pollack, I saw your hand again.
I've got a bit of a controversial hot take on this one. I read the Golang security team's FAQ a while back on why they do not provide severities for their vulnerabilities, and it resonated with me. And the gentleman before me provided a beautifully well qualified answer, because scoring vulnerabilities for a global audience is very hard. And they say we don't provide them because the impact of a vulnerability is rarely universal, which means that severity indicators can often be deceptive.
Mhm.
For example, a crash in a parser may be a critical severity issue if it's using untrusted input, or if it's only using known safe input, then it's not even a low, right? So it's subjective. And yeah, so I can appreciate why people want severity scores, because they need they need to prioritize, right? But it's very, very hard to accurately provide that thing for a global audience with limited context. The environmental aspect is very, very crucial.
Completely, I agree with you, Andrew. And that's why we think, again, that vector string is so important, and to have that base as an input. And if you're leveraging additional tools that will provide additional supplemental metrics on top of that are unique to your environment, then you can get a closer understanding to what you need to do in your specific environment. And it's very hard for one thing to be a silver bullet, and not one data field in a CVE record again is a silver bullet. It's always going to be a part of the risk management decision making process, but ultimately enhancing that base, you need that base score to enhance it additionally with those threat and environmental metrics that'll get you a bit closer to what you would need to do. Any other thoughts on who you are and why you care? Martin from Nestle.
We are from Nestle team, and we manage globally vulnerabilities mainly on infrastructure and external attack surface. And well, here, for example, we are not really using the scoring of the CVSs, but we use mainly the attributes to calculate our own type of scoring. No? So very important that this is there. And also we are looking forward for vendors migrating to CVSS version 4 that enhance this a lot, and we will be able to do much more in our calculation and avoid some manual checking and confirmations.
Awesome. All right, so we've got some documented up here. Thank you all for contributing to that. Again, really important to understand why we care and who cares. So we've got security teams. They're using that vector string we've been talking about to assess how likely vulnerabilities can be exploited and their potential impact. Developers understand how vulnerabilities can affect their code and their systems. And we've got the national CSIRTs and certs, and they're using it to communicate and alert about important vulnerability properties across agencies. Additionally, CISOs and management gives them that high-level understanding of how the vulnerability may impact the organization and to what extent. To the next slide, please. All right, we touched on it a little bit, but I'm going to present some of the challenges and some solutions. We've got many tools, and many of them are only using the base score, which again is just a general thing that the developer is providing, and it's not really as specific to somebody's unique environment. We also recognize that CVSS is time consuming. Additionally, accurately selecting the right metrics in the vector string can be very difficult. Lastly, the base vector strings aren't environment specific. So Andrew, Martin, what you guys were saying is exactly right. Just the base string itself might not even do much for somebody trying to reduce risk within their organization. But there are some solutions to those challenges. So we recommend that you use tools that consider the vendor string as an input. Additionally, and Martin, you mentioned this, consider starting to use CVSS version 4. There's some really actually great things and improvements in version 4. It's a bit simpler and more understandable to use. It pairs very well with SSVC, which we all know and love. Additionally, I think they retired the much loved or much hated, which one is it, scope metric? How do we feel about the scope metric? Anybody loved it, hated it? It's gone. I think it's retired. So we
Wish
definitely
Jono was here. That was a very niche joke.
Yes. And so again, we definitely recommend using that version 4. Consider using that to help with, again, accurately selecting those metrics in the vector string and reducing some time. If you're still confused, I would also reference the CVSS SIGs examples. They've got some great examples of how to approach this vector string. And if you've seen the examples and you don't think that they're robust enough, like talk to the SIG leaders. I'm sure many of them are here. Andrew, are you on the SIG? Never mind. Different Andrew, I think. And talk with them if they need to be improved and you guys need more guidance on how to create that vector string in the CVSS. We'd love to hear from you and improve those examples. Lastly, as we've been talking about, let's enhance those base vector strings with threat and environmental metrics. That's going to get you closer to making a risk-informed decision, because that base metric is only, again, the developer's best guess, and you really need to understand how that might potentially impact and to what severity potentially your environment. And so those additional metrics are very necessary.
Thank you, Rina. That was so much good information about what we can add to our CVE records to glow them up. That is, what CNAs can do for their own records. And it's one thing to talk the talk, but I would also like to share how CISA is walking the walk to glow up our very own records.
That's Julia.
So our first glow up aspect we are going to talk about is vulnerable. You may have heard our colleagues earlier at the conference talking about vulnerable. First of all, we have this resources and capacity to be able to score the majority of CVEs with SSVC, the first 3 decision points. And CISA is particularly interested in that because it helps us as one part of our whole analysis to protect critical infrastructure and reduce risk to it. In addition, and so SSVC also helps inform like exploitability, impact, and automatability. So that's why we are taking it upon ourselves to add those 3 decision points to CVEs. We also put a little KEV flag on CVEs that, are exploited or known exploited vulnerabilities. Shout out to the KEV and their team, because I have heard from you all throughout the conference that not only do governments rely on the KEV and within our own FSEB, but industry partners look to it as a significant resource to bolster their cyber defense as well. And lastly, like we've all talked about, CWE and CVSS. This is supposed to add clarity and technical value on the severity of vulnerabilities, and CISA adds these where they're missing. Throughout the CVE catalog, we take a look at where there's data gaps. So if a CWE is missing, CISA will go ahead and put a CWE on it, and same with CVSS. We do this to the best of our ability with the description provided by the CNA. It's important to note that all of these additions by CISA are dynamic. We know we don't know best. As Rina said, the CNAs with their scope know their vulnerabilities and their products the best. They're the ones sitting with the code. They know the environments it's used in, etc. So we also have a feedback loop on GitHub, so you can put in a request and say, hey, I think the wrong CWE was assigned, or hey, I don't think the score is right. And, we'll remove our addition once the CNA updates the record. And it's beautiful how automated the whole process is, because as a CVE consumer, you ingest those automatically. You don't have to sign up for the CISA updates or the CNA updates. Whenever you update your system, CVE will always have the most updated information.
And I'm going to ask too, has anybody in this room contributed on the GitHub to our vulnerable effort? I know Chris has. Anyone else? Anyone use the KEV? Love it. Woo, perfect.
So the second part of the way CISA is glowing up CVE records is through our CNA recruitment efforts. And so to become a CNA, the 3 requirements are to have a vulnerability disclosure policy, a public source for new vulnerabilities, and to agree to the CVE terms of use. These requirements has made the standard to become a CNA very accessible. But what we're looking for in our CNAs under the CISA route is that you are communicative, you're transparent, you embrace the philosophy of sharing vulnerabilities that are within your products, and you are actively going to the best of your ability, produce complete, accurate, and timely CVE records. And if you're an all-star, you'll make the CVE program's data enrichment recognition list that's published every 2 weeks. So I have a little stat up here. Between September 1, 2024 and April 1, 2025, the CNAs under the CISA ICS route published 569 CVEs. 95% of those records included CWE, and 64% included CVSS. And so by promoting these good habits and teaching and onboarding CNAs, we're contributing to quality information in the ecosystem that everyone who consumes it can benefit from. A little bit more on that. So oftentimes we receive CNA recruitment leads from organizations we have coordinated disclosures with in the past. Throughout the disclosure, they've been communicative and transparent. They've worked with us. They've been responsive at the bottom line. Back in the CVE fall workshop, actually, Todd Beardsley did a word cloud about what makes a CNA have bad behavior. And it's, not responding, lying, lawyers, scary stuff like that. So that we're looking for CNAs who are going to demonstrate mature vulnerability management, including communication and, the willingness to air their dirty laundry, so to speak, because it's not bad. You know that software is going to have vulnerabilities. And if it doesn't, then you're not looking hard enough. So here we have, as I said, some leads. Let me get my lightsaber. Leads during our CVD process, looking for mature vulnerability management. And at the end of the day, CNAs are empowered to share vulnerabilities in their products, and they are held accountable by their customers. So as I said, good habits look like complete, accurate, and timely record publication, publishing CVEs for known vulnerabilities. And CISA likes to point out that's for internally discovered and externally discovered. Knowing a vulnerability exists doesn't really help anyone, so publishing a CVE and adding that enriched information is helpful. And then going back to what makes a good CVE record, a quality description. So that's going to have that comprehensive list of products. That's also going to have the CVSS score. It's not just in the JSON format, it's also in the human readable format to make sure that every consumer, gets that information. And of course, the beloved CWE and CVSS that we've talked about. And, we recognize that there's a delicate balance between giving an attacker a potential roadmap to exploiting these vulnerabilities. And that's kind of one of the things CISA takes pride in, is mentoring the CNAs under them. All right, we have about 7 to 10 minutes, just checking in. So after recruiting, when we onboard CNAs, we coach them through their first CVE assignments. We host refresher trainings. We demo CVE services. In one recent instance, a CNA wanted to show a different CVSS score for their different product versions. So we leveraged Vulnogram for the different scoring scenarios feature. Another time, we helped a CNA pick out the correct CWE so that they could correctly inform their customers, or rather their consumers, about the underlying weakness and make sure their messaging was overall consistent. Other ways we upskill CNAs are to encourage working group participation, and outlined here are 3 that are a great start, including the CNA Organization of Peers, and Root Cause Mapping Group, as Rina said, and CWE, CVE User Experience Working Group.
Is anybody in this room in any of those working groups? Amazing. I'm in the root cause mapping working group. As I mentioned, I love CWE, so.
So what is the result of this coaching? How has it, shown up in our CVE records? Well, as I shared before, 95% of records included CWEs for CNAs under the CISA route. 19 CNAs under CISA have made the data enrichment recognition list every single time. And not even CISA has made it every single time. So that was I'm very proud of those CNAs. And then we also have 64% of the records were considered complete. And for the purposes of this presentation, that includes CWE and CVSS. TLDR. Don't be this person.
Yeah.
Be this person. We all say we want better input into the ecosystem. We all want better CVEs, better informed tools, things like that. And that starts at the CNAs.
You guys love these memes? Okay, good. Call to action. Let's get your glow up on, right? So you've got SpongeBob as the downstream CVE users, right? And he's yelling about wanting enriched CVE records. And his friend's asking him, when does he want them? He wants them now. He wants them in the past, the present, and in the future records.
So today, I want you to take away, if you're a CNA, I encourage you to enrich your records with CWE and CVSS. If you're a researcher, we want your feedback. Are these assignments accurate from your own research? We want you participating in the GitHub and the CNA community to make sure that all stakeholders are involved and have input. And then if you're a downstream user, we want to hear you too. What data points are missing from CVE records? Because we can educate CNAs and contribute through vulnerability and other efforts to better, create a better, robust ecosystem. CVE is the public's definitive source for publicly disclosed vulnerabilities, and it's only as valuable as the data we input into it. It's only as trustworthy as the data we put into it. So, what do you say? Let's give your CVE records a glow up.
And I think we have some slides and some contact information, our emails, and then I think we have our LinkedIn's as well. Questions from the audience? I'm going to start with you since I've heard from Andrew Pollock.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sylvain, coming from France. I just have a quick question. I'm surprised you didn't mention CP enrichment, part of this glow up journey, Because, what is the purpose of having a magnificent information about vulnerabilities if you are not able to make the accurate link with your software inventory?
Hey, that's a really great question. And initially with vulnerability, we were enriching with CPE, and then we decided to stop. Currently, I believe only 2 CNAs are adding CPE to their records. And so while, we do value software identification, and it's a really tricky problem, and we're open to changing the definition of what completeness means. For right now, we're considering, having a good description that mentions the products and versions that are affected as a stepping stone towards, understanding which software is affected. But would love to hear your thoughts on CPE in the future, and we'd love to consider it as a complete record. But for right now, we're just going to have that definition be CWE and CVSS. But thank you for that comment. Is CPE important to you? Okay. Questions? Tassilo.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. I'm wondering, you're a CNA, right? So you
Yes.
have power to decide what the CNA, and then you have to do.
Mhm.
So why don't you just enforce the CNA that are under you to use CWE and CVSS as like a requirement whenever they will sign up?
Cecilo, that's a great question. And we're currently working to, and so why Julia mentioned those stats, it's like, hey, we even have room for improvement. We're not here just saying like, hey, we've got everything covered. We're doing all of the things. Like we have some room to make improvement. And Julia is currently upskilling CNAs to get to that goal of completeness as well. Julia, anything in addition?
Yeah. Vendors like Steve, all their presentations, they had an awesome diagram of all the analysis and product security updates they do. But there's such variety between the CNA funder system, which are 66, that you know, we want to work with CNAs with what's most valuable to them, and we also want to work with downstream users with what information is valuable to them. So I would say the variety. While we can't provide individualized attention, we're very fortunate to do that. The variety, you know, prevents us from planning. The CVE program is a voluntary program. It depends on participation from the community. And so if you want to see standards, you know, make your voice heard, and you can also implement that around the others too. Andrew Paula.
I think that question showed a misconception that I've seen a few times, where there is no data flow through that hierarchy of CNAs and root CNAs. It's purely administrative. But I think people who don't understand how the sausage is made think that it does, right? So I've heard that before as well. The CVE program is being used globally. You've made that acknowledgement at the very beginning. It currently has a very American accent, if you will. Sorry. As you know, it's an interesting decade, right? Like where the world is pivoting a little bit more regional and nationalistic at the minute. How do we avoid a whole bunch of unintended consequences from that undermine the ultimate objective here of global improvement to cybersecurity, right? Like it's a the internet is still a global thing, even if we get a bit more nationalistic. So I'd hate for like ENISA, for example, to cause a whole bunch of duplicated effort or diminished. Like, can we mitigate that by making the CVE program have more diverse funding?
So we're currently working with a lot of global certs, and again, it is a global program. I think to one of your points about the American accent, I'm actually calling my friend Michelle from Cisco. She writes a lot of the advisories, and we had a conversation the other night that she writes them in a way that is easily translatable into other languages. Michelle, did you want to add anything?
So part of the content management system in Cisco PCERT is we have a team of 4 technical editors, and we work with our incident managers to get our advisories into what we call global English, which is, you know, you're nodding your head, you understand what that means. So you're making them very easily translatable. You want to use words that have one meaning, not 4 or 5 meanings. So then if it's somebody on the team who kind of knows enough English to kind of translate, they can get it right. If you're putting it through a translation program, you can get it right. And so that's definitely a focus and something that's bubbled to the top for me since I've been here, and would like to, you know, get that message out there better for people who have content teams or don't have the luxury of a content team, and make it easier if you're writing and you don't have editing backup. Does that help? No, not what you were looking
I think, if I may, the point is with the funding.
No. I think I got you as the person who recruits CNAs, right? So of course, my scope is for ICS and medical device and critical infrastructure, but that the participation from the global community, like they're welcome to join, and my outreach goes beyond those like boundaries, right? Where we see certs taking an active role is to also be ambassadors for CNAs within their own countries, even if they are not a CNA themselves. And so I think it's getting the outreach to, you know, encourage a more diverse participation. So I would love you, for instance, to introduce me to some Australian companies that should become CNAs. I can't speak to that, but what I can speak to is CVE record glow-ups, the importance of CWE, the importance of CVSS, the importance of sharing information amongst each other, the importance of public-private partnerships when it comes to vulnerability information sharing, and the importance of creating these partnerships at the conference and going beyond. Video calls are an amazing thing. If you are interested in knowing more about becoming a CNA and increasing global participation, maybe from an underrepresented industry, feel free to come talk to me. We also have a CNA outreach email. That's cna@mail.dhs or CISA.dhs.gov. And that's time. Thank you.